Hello and welcome to this exciting live launch of the Nottingham Canal Improvement Partnership. Over the next hour we're going to be giving you a first glance into what it is, how it will work and what it means for you.
That's right, Danielle. Amazingly, nearly 75,000 people in Nottingham live within 1 kilometre of a waterway, and the opportunities provided by the city's south side regeneration have given birth to this innovative partnership.
So the Canal and River Trust, we look after 2,000 miles of waterways across England and Wales. In Nottingham, it's one of our real focus areas. We've got a great waterway that runs through the centre of the city. We want to enhance it and become a destination in itself.
The canal is part of Nottingham's heritage. Got to say that first and foremost, but I think the most important thing is actually the canal is part of its future and helping to deliver the city's future.
Well, we think that it's very important that the occupiers of Nottingham work together to bring this major underutilised asset back to life.
It has a very calming effect, particularly on people perhaps with learning difficulties or people with autism. Being able to get out on the boats is a very relaxing experience for people.
We love being able to help the community, and the canals are such a central part of Nottingham and so close to our shops. We love being able to help clean them up and revitalize them and give them new life to draw people back to this part of the city.
It's really important to enhance the facilities as much as possible, to share the stories of what's happened previously on the canal and what that meant for the development of Nottingham, and to really share that openly and to start some conversations.
Because we're short of space for green space in the city centre, it's vital that we use every inch that we've got, and that makes Nottingham a more pleasant place to visit, so therefore the businesses will be more successful.
Certainly for our public transport navigation, it's very much a back street venue, so you're always relying on the quality of what you put out there rather than any kind of footfall. So if it can increase the curb appeal, or whatever the canal equivalent of that is, it's no doubt going to benefit us.
Because we do work in an office, it's fast paced and you need to step away from the computers, the meetings that we've got. So having something on your doorstep which literally takes 2 minutes to get to and then kind of break away from the routine of work is a really positive thing.
So really the idea is for the Nottingham Canal Improvement Partnership to bring business, organisations, community groups together to focus on this blue-green corridor that runs through the city, how we can enhance it so that people spend more time and can gain the well-being benefits from it.
It truly is an exciting time for the city, and it's great to hear from so many people about the potential of the city's waterways. And if you'd like to know more about how you can get involved with the Canal Improvement Partnership, Scott, who you saw in our package just there, is on hand to help. You can get hold of him at scott.miller@canalrivertrust.org.uk. We'll also be joined live at the end of the show by 2 very special guests for a Q&A. So if you have any questions you'd like to pose, simply pop them into the Q&A box below and we'll be putting the best ones to our guests later. But for now, let's join Tom, who is with the Canal and River Trust's Regional Director for the East Midlands, Phil Mulligan.
Thanks, Danielle. Phil is indeed down with us here at Castle Wharf. So Phil, we touched on that a little bit in the package just now, but why is the Canal Improvement Partnership coming into being?
Well, it's really important that the waterway plays its full potential in helping the city recover post-COVID. So now is the time to bring people along the waterway together to look at how we can work together on improving the waterway. So we've got some really sympathetic developers on board. The City Council are really keen, and we have a huge number of businesses up and down the waterway who are interested in playing their part and maximising the opportunities that we've got here. But of course, if every developer and every business does it alone, they'll never achieve as much as they would if we all work together.
It's quite a broad question, but how do you see it developing over time? I guess, how do you want to see it developing over time as the Canal and River Trust?
Well, I'd love all the communities on and along the waterway, all the businesses that face the waterway, and all the strategic partners, the city, the LEP and so on, coming together through this canal partnership and really making the most of this, and that will be about everybody contributing to ideas. We've had Farrah Huxley, award-winning landscape architects, come up with some initial thinking. We want to take that, consult people and really co-create not only the physical infrastructure but the kind of activities that we can do together to make the most of this blue-green corridor, to make the most of this wonderful space so that people who live and work in Nottingham can benefit from that.
Thanks, Phil. Great to speak to you. I know we'll have you in the live Q&A later on as well. We'll throw to you now, Danielle. I believe you're with David Pearson from the East Midlands Chamber.
Thanks, Tom and Phil. Looking forward to seeing what questions come in for you in the live Q&A later on, so do please get your questions in. But for now, I am with David Pearson from East Midlands Chamber. Thank you for joining me.
Hello.
So what makes the canal so important to this city, David?
I think the canal is important to most industrial cities. Canals are, are the old lifeline that came through the place and bring vitality to the place. And you look at some cities, and it really is an important place still. Perhaps less so in the past in Nottingham, but it's really important that we revitalise it from the canal upward and outwards.
And one of the key things that we're talking about today is getting businesses engaged and getting everything back to normal. What would you encourage businesses to get involved? How would you encourage that?
I think it's been interested in providing support where they can. It's not about just giving money. It's about being engaged and being enthusiastic about what's happening and taking part and being part of groups and things. Yeah.
And I think one of the key things for businesses is they'll want to understand what benefit it will have for them, because obviously, of course, we want them to get involved, but just what will it mean to have a waterway like this and the improvement that we're looking at? What will that mean for businesses?
I think it's just a small part of bringing life back into Nottingham that perhaps has been lacking for a few years now. With the works going on at the Broadmarsh Centre just across the way and the east side, there's lots of things happening in Nottingham, and to do more with the waterways at the moment is really positive to bring that whole life back.
Well, thank you, Dave. It's always good to get a perspective from the Chamber, but I'm going to hand over to Tom now, who is just a little bit further down the canal with Farrah Huxley Architects.
Thanks, Danielle. We're down here at Castle Wharf, and I'm delighted to be joined by Noel Farrah from Farrah Huxley Landscape Architects. So, Noel, the Canal and River Trust came to you guys when the partnership first started getting going. What was their vision for the canal?
Well, at that stage, it was a little bit more restricted. I mean, we were only asked, there was a red line on a piece of paper, which is what we often find, and we were only asked to look at a quite small part of the canal. It became really apparent to us almost immediately that a much wider study was going to be required. Even if we wanted to just put in a couple of seats, maybe a light column here and there within that piece, well, hang on a minute. This is a linear route. This is where you travel. This is where you walk along. And it links and impacts all the other sites all the way through Nottingham. And it becomes apparent to me that the seat I'm going to design here also needs to work in other places all the way along the canal.
So what's the vision then to meet that sort of that wider brief of that sort of that walkway and that passage from east to west?
The vision now is in recognising that we are looking to improve the whole canal, the whole of the canal as it runs through Nottingham for the benefit of the whole city, and really starting to ensure that what the vision is going to do is capture and realise the value that can bring to this city. I think that's really important. Some cities really use their canals phenomenally well. I mean, obviously we can go over to the continent, but even in London now, the Islington Canal, the Hertford Canal, all the canals in many places now are becoming vibrant frontages. I think we realised that through a partnership arrangement with the private sector and all of the buildings that are on the canal, we want them to turn what are presently and have traditionally been the backs to those developments into the fronts, so that this becomes the central lifeline, a healthy public space for everyone to enjoy.
So what do you think are the first things that people are going to be kind of looking out for? What are the waypoints, do you think, on this plan going forward?
I think this canal, through its nature over time, over the 150 years it's already been here, has had different iterations over time. And I think that patina, that heritage texture needs to inform our next stage. For me, we need to change people's perceptions so that they choose to go, oh, I'm going to take a walk down by the canal, where now they don't. And then I think the partnership can really kick in and we can get the private sector a little bit excited about the canal, and that we can see proper investment to actually then turn what are temporary projects into permanent projects.
Thank you very much, Noel. Great to hear from you, and thank you also to all of our other guests. That's just about it from us down here at the waterfront. It's time to go over to you, Danielle, for the live Q&A.
Huge thanks to everyone who has spoken to us in today's episode, and it was amazing. It's such a lovely day down by the canal as well. I can't believe how lucky we were. It's now time to get stuck into the live Q&A section of today's webisode, and we are also joined, as well as being joined by Phil and Noel, we are also joined by Linny from the Canal and River Trust. Now, Linny, we've not actually seen you on screen yet, so if you'd like to just introduce yourself to us.
Hi, I'm Linny Beaumont, and I'm the Partnerships and External Relationships Manager here at the Trust.
Lovely stuff. Lovely to have you with us. Now, this is a very exciting time, isn't it, for everyone here at the Canal and River Trust. So, Phil, just how exciting is this partnership for you guys?
Yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity for us. We're so pleased that people have been able to join us here today. Obviously, we had a launch planned earlier in the year that got delayed, and I appreciate everyone's taking the time and effort and adapted to new technology, because I think the prize is just so great, you know, what's on offer here, and it's wonderful to have people here today hearing about what we've got planned and then seeing how they can get involved.
Absolutely. Now, Noel, we're going to come to you to get kick-started into today's webinar. So can you paint a picture of your vision for the waterway? I know that's a very wide question, so if you can kind of do a potted version of the vision that you have for the waterway.
Well, I think in many ways the vision is something that's really straightforward, very easy, that for everyone can grasp, which is what we want is a vibrant place. We want a place where people can really enjoy and socialise and be. You know, town centres, I think more and more are now starting to look to their canals as real opportunities for pastoral living. I mean, Phil touched on the COVID piece in the film and again there. And the reality is the canal is a natural waterway. It is a point of nature coming through the town as well, with the water, the wildlife, the biodiversity. And that is a real alternative to the streets, to cars, to pollution, to the other dynamic parts of the city. So actually, all of a sudden, I believe that the canal in Nottingham, like it has elsewhere, can become this central piece of the jigsaw that is that will really capture people's imagination and be naturally a place that they want to end up going to, that they're going to want to go to. And I think that really is the vision, seeing a highly used, occupied, pop-ups, things to do, entertainment, something to buy, a cup of coffee, meeting, socializing, because that is, you know, that is human therapy, and that needs to happen in the canal at Nottingham, not on the street side.
I think you managed to put that very succinctly to say how wide a vision can be, Noel. So thank you. Now, Phil, we're going to come to you with this next one, because obviously the Canal and River Trust, you work across the length and breadth of England. So why Nottingham in particular, and why now, I suppose, is the more important part of that question?
Well, there's already a lot going on in Nottingham with Canal and River Trust have amazing volunteers who do work. We've got close relationships with the City Council who we work with to maintain what's going on there. I mean, we ourselves have put in floating reed beds recently, and we're starting to create the wildflower verges. There's actual money available through the council for things like improving lighting and access points and widening the towpath. So there's lots of things happening, bubbling away, lots of opportunity. But really, we've got a fantastic council that really gets it, supportive developers who can all see how important it is to face the waterway, to put the water at the heart of the development of what's going on. And with all the regen going on, and we've had the castle being transformed and Broadmarsh, but really some of these schemes coming forward, they're going to be with us for 2, 3, 4 generations or longer. They're that kind of scale and nature, and therefore we've got just a really critical moment now to make all of that work for people, work for nature, work for businesses. So I really think now it's more than a once in a lifetime. You know, it's longer than our lifetime, the kind of impact that we can have if we get it all right and build on the excitement and the opportunities that are there.
I think you're right. It is a really exciting time for Nottingham, and you touched on a couple of the kind of regeneration projects that are taking place at the moment. So I think now is as good a time as any to hear from Paul Seddon from Nottingham City Council, who of course is the Director of Planning and Regeneration, because we spoke to him last week. So let's hear from him now.
The canal is part of Nottingham's heritage. Got to say that first and foremost, but I think the most important thing is actually the canal is part of its future and helping to deliver the city's future. It sits at the heart of, you know, our south side regeneration, kind of multi-project scheme that we've been delivering over the past several years, and amounts to at least kind of £2 billion worth of investment within the city across the whole range of developments kind of coming forward. I think what a canal can do, really interestingly, is it can help act as kind of the catalyst. It really helps with the placemaking, and I think given that we've got kind of lots of new buildings coming on and the like, the canal gives a little bit more of maybe a calmer space. I think particularly probably kind of post-pandemic and how we use our cities. The canal, its location, going right through and linking up to the heart of the city centre, I think is vitally important. It comes from the west, perhaps some more of the established development out there. It's a good, busy route, and a different way to get into the city centre. Cycles, pedestrians, boats as well, rather than perhaps kind of typically kind of motorised transport and what have you. So I think there's a relationship there in terms of our net zero carbon aims for 2028. I think the other is that what the canal really, I think interestingly and helpfully does, it links up some of our big regeneration parts of the city centre. So, we're standing now in the heart of the south side, kind of centred on Broadmarsh, and what, the future of that will bring differently now to us. But, a short stretch behind me, it joins up with the Island Quarter, a whole new urban village being created there. And as the canal turns southwards, then it heads towards the Trent and all of the kind of aspirational housing and the new communities that we want to build along the waterside. So it does a really good job, I think, of connecting up. Earlier in the year, before we all went into lockdown and what have you, we were starting to kind of really think with them and colleagues at CRT, how do you green up this space? How do you improve its biodiversity and so on? I think all of those ingredients, alongside kind of the hard urban realm and the new buildings that we're putting up, are really going to create a lovely bit of cityscape and place to be.
Lovely to hear from Paul Seddon there, and some great things going on in Nottingham like we touched on earlier. Now let's get back into the Q&A. By the way, great that we're seeing you asking questions. We will answer as many of them as we can. So let's get stuck back in, shall we? Linny, this next one is for you. So of course, the whole thing about this partnership is to get people involved. So how can businesses and community groups get involved with the partnership if they're interested?
Okay, well, I mean, as a charity, it's absolutely invaluable that organisations and businesses do support us, and they can do that in lots of different ways. So firstly, we are looking for funding and in-kind support to do some of those physical transformation projects that we've talked about. So for instance, we want to create more wildlife habitats. There might be businesses out there that want to sponsor and care for new reed beds and wildflower vergers, or they might want to help us with more access points, better signage, better wayfinding. So it may be that there's a business or an organisation out there with land or buildings where we can do new signage, or even hold activities. Our idea about a pop-up farmers market in stores. So there's lots of ways that they can help with the physical improvements. Secondly, we need to work in partnership to engage communities. So there'll be businesses, there'll be organisations out there that have got really good links into certain community groups. We want to work in partnership with those people, and they might want to help us deliver wellbeing activities, volunteering opportunities, as well as supporting our work with children and young people. There might be businesses that just want to help with supporting our campaigns, getting our messages out there in terms of our plastic challenges, or don't drink and drown campaigns. There's all kinds of ways you can use social media and networks to really spread the word. And thirdly, there is we've already got a lot of corporates that are doing volunteer days with us. They enjoy it, they see the benefit for their staff, they get they feel better, they get a bit of exercise, it's good for their well-being. And we want to do more of that with more organisations out there, and that might be physical things like litter picking and planting and painting lock gates, but also there might be staff out there that want to use their skills and their expertise to support us in terms of finding solutions to some of the challenges that the waterway has, or helping us deliver and raise awareness with schools, etc. So there's lots of different ways that can suit different types of organisations out there. There's a role for everyone, I guess. And on top of all those opportunities, we also want to ask if there's people out there that feel that they want to be part of a steering group, because we'll create this big partnership, we'll communicate and work with everybody, but we want to also have a steering group that can really drive forward the vision.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's so many different ways there that you've just mentioned. So for anyone who's watching who is interested in getting involved, we will be putting up contact details at the end for you. So there'll definitely be an easy way for you to get in touch. Now, Noel, we're going to come to you with this next one. Other than the obvious, changing the way it looks, what difference can changing a landscape make to a place?
Well, I suppose I made that choice that I thought it could make a difference a long time ago, probably when I went to college, in truth. Landscape is truly transformational and can be. The reality is particularly the nature of canal landscapes. Canal landscapes are public. The public landscape is where we can all be free, we can meet, we can come together as people. And actually, that is and can be absolutely transformational. Here in Nottingham, I think the canals have, I think they are. I mean, I took the trouble, I walk along that canal, I walked on that canal with you. The reality is that at the moment, it isn't being used so much. It feels a bit tired. Sometimes, I mean, you know, there's the birds roosting under some of the bridges, and it feels a bit musty at the edges, and actually that can put people off. With small change, where you change perceptions to where people think that is you take those small issues away and you create somewhere where people naturally feel safe. And by safe, I noticed there's quite a number of things that come up in the Q&A about, you know, how are you going to deal with safety and security. Bringing more people is by definition making a place safer. And as soon as we have more people, then they're going to be able to socialise and be there. And then that creates a market. That means the pop-up's going to appear, and you start to create this sort of dynamic. But that transformation means that you're creating a sanctuary. The canal in Nottingham is a sanctuary, unlike being on the street side, unlike at a bus stop, unlike in any other places. Coming down to the water, it will be cooler by the water in summer. It will feel like a place that you want to be. The microclimate of a canal, it means that you have a very attractive and dynamic place to actually come. It really, truly, people seek out the canal in lots of towns and cities. You know, you see the images in Amsterdam or close. You add trees, you add green, you add small things, and from there, very large change. It actually is the difference between wanting to live there. Look at urban canal side prices for apartments in some places, and as you are now seeing further down the river towards the Trent in Nottingham. The reality is, it creates a very desirable place, a place for people to meet and talk. And frankly, that's what we're about. That's what people are all about. And it is also, the last thing I want to say, equitable. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter how old or young you are. It doesn't matter, you know, whatever your backgrounds, wherever you're coming from. This is something that is ubiquitous. This sanctuary is something that we can all benefit from. So I think it's fantastic in that way.
You've painted such a beautiful picture there. I really want to go down to sit by the canal in the sunshine, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime until next summer now, sadly. Now, Phil, this question has come from James Freeborough. It's more of a kind of geographical question. Does the canal partnership extend all the way to the River Trent? So where are we kind of going from until with this?
Yeah, well, I mean, water has very fluid boundaries, and, you know, the canal has a relationship with the river, and it's hard to say where those boundaries really sit. So, I mean, anyone with an interest in the canal will have an interest in the river because they're so intimately linked, and vice versa. So there's no real limit to anyone's enthusiasm or interest in joining the Canal Improvement Partnership. The canal is intimately linked to the river at both ends of the city. So it's really, the more inclusive we are, the larger the net, the more the more successful it will be. Can I just jump in on a couple of the other questions that have been asked on the Q&A?
You can do if you'd like to, yes.
There was a couple there. So green flag status, we have applied for green flag status for the whole of the canal, and we've had a judging visit recently, and we're waiting to hear the outcome of that. Green flag status would be a great marker for the city, but it's not just a badge that you put on your shelf. You know, it involves activity, it involves monitoring, it involves management, it involves engaging communities. So hopefully soon we'll be awarded the green flag status, and then we'll be looking to kind of people on this call and the residents and the businesses to get involved in helping maintain and making that green flag a reality. And someone did ask about the government Green Recovery Fund. The Canal River Trust is expressing an interest in that, but that will be for our triple SIs, our sites of special scientific interest, so that won't directly affect the canal. And I know magnet fishing has been mentioned, as well as security. So magnet fishing is a real problem for the trust. It's a nuisance. It causes, you know, litter, danger, cost in clearing it up. And we are trialling different approaches. There's no easy answer. Sometimes we're trying to engage with people who are doing it. Other times we're looking at a more kind of legislative approach. We know that in Leicester, where we've got a problem as well, the police have been involved over 30 times this summer in incidents, and we've had 11 accounts of the bomb squad being called out. So it's a real problem. It's not allowed. Again, something that the partnership could help us do is address some of that litter and waste. And at the moment, we have great volunteering schemes already going up and down the canal, helping us with litter. And as Noel said, the more of that kind of life and presence, the more loved and owned the canal is, some of these problems will drop away.
It is fascinating how a partnership like this can open so many different doors. Now, Linny, this is a question from Roshni at Leicester City Council. What are the main challenges that you've identified in bringing all businesses together in partnership, or maybe if there haven't been any yet, if there are any challenges you expect and how you'll overcome them?
Okay, well, I guess we're feeling really optimistic, because back in January, when we started inviting people to the original launch that we had to then cancel, we had over 100 businesses that wanted to come along and hear what we'd got to say. And obviously a lot has happened since then, and we've all, as somebody said earlier, learned to use this technology. But what we've found is that people are still engaged. People can see that the canal really can help with the COVID recovery of the city, both economically and in terms of people's health and well-being. So we haven't found challenges yet. What we've found is lots of enthusiasm, and we've got businesses contacting us. We had Wilmot Dixon have had a really exciting conversation with us. They already litter pick and care for a section of the waterway, but actually they want to get involved with helping us engage with communities, doing joint school projects and university projects. They're full of ideas. They've offered to join the steering group. Likewise, 200 Degrees Coffee, when they heard that we were thinking about would a farmers market work in Castle Wharf to create a really thriving area, or some pop-up stores, they immediately have offered some of their expertise to help us look at the feasibility of that and maybe lead something forward. So, you know, there's already a lot of interest and excitement that will follow up in the coming weeks and months.
That is incredibly exciting. So you've just mentioned the steering group there. So for anyone who maybe doesn't know what the steering group is or how it works, tell us a little bit about the role of it, Linny.
Okay, so what we want to do is set up a very representative group. So we'll have ourselves, the City Council, maybe some other public sector, like health bodies, but we want the voluntary sector and businesses and some community representation, so the local communities have got a voice. And we want to come and bring that group together to really set the strategic direction. You know, we have got a vision, and Farrar Huxley have given us so many amazing ideas, but we want to now sort of co-design that and take it the next step further. So it's about coming together to look at priorities and the problems, set an action plan, and maybe a programme of improvements, of activities, of events when we can hold them again next year. And also to look at where we might be able to secure funding or in-kind support, and look into the feasibility of some of the bigger, maybe more exciting projects such as water taxes and trip boats and you know, the idea of the farmers market and art exhibitions. So it is about bringing an action plan together and driving the work forward, really. Oh, and just to say, we've picked out the 6th of November, which is a Friday at 2 o'clock again, as provisionally our first meeting. So what we want is people to let us know if they want to be part of that.
Okay, 6th of November on a Friday. There we go.
Yes,
We repeated it just to make sure.
Thank you.
Now, Lily, this could go to either you or Phil, to be fair, this next question, because of course today is all about launching the partnership, but also inviting people to get involved, inviting companies to get involved. Are there any specific, you know, businesses or industries that you're looking to be approached by, or is it just a general shout out to anyone to get involved?
From my point of view, it's absolutely a general shout out. You know, we started off talking to and communicating with businesses adjacent to the waterway, but actually there's a real recognition that this can benefit businesses wider than the waterway into the Nottingham city centre and beyond the boundaries. So absolutely, we want to be all encompassing, really.
I would just add as well, it isn't just about the businesses, it is about the communities. Yeah. Someone's asked that in the Q&A, and we would love the communities along the waterway to really get to know their waterway more, to access it more, to feel more sense of ownership. Now, we can do things as a partnership to bring people to the water. You know, we can put on activities and programs and events. We can create trails, and we can, you know, have health walks and community gatherings. And that's something the partnership can very much help facilitate and support. Just as I think potentially the partnership could be looking at some kind of small grant scheme that it administers for communities to improve their own little stretch of the waterway. And we already have at the Canal and River Trust a community adoption model for businesses as well as communities to adopt their little patch and take part in regular maintenance and care and get to know it and love it. So I do think there's lots of ways communities can be involved, but you know, our experience is that even where people live very close to waterways, they often don't access it. It could be those outdated perceptions, that kind of musty feeling that Noel talked about, or that's kind of security perception. So as a partnership, we can create a waterway that is beautiful, that is interesting, that has activity that will bring the communities there who are going to be vital in the ongoing kind of maintenance and care of the waterway itself.
Could I say something there as well, please?
Of course you can.
Thank you. Just to say that I think it's really important. We touched on this when we were down by the river, is this idea of early wins. The reality is that people need to be able to tangibly know that they can get involved, and they really, really can. Very small differences can make very large changes on the canal. This idea where in town centres now you find that people are sort of wrapping trees in lights so that at Christmas time they look absolutely amazing, and then they feel really lovely and they're quite attractive. The reality is, people don't take those down anymore. They stay there all year round because actually they have a role to play at different points in time. The canal, I think, has an opportunity to look at very simple changes, perhaps things like that on certain trees along the canal, which will help. Perhaps also little projects to maybe make sure that the birds aren't under the bridges, and very small things are going to make very large differences in people's perception and just them feeling a little bit kempt. So I believe that we want to be able to, and will be able to, as well as our larger strategic goals that we're looking for, have early wins that are like ground up ideas rather than top down thinking. We're going to be able to do both of those things together, and I think really, really well. And from those small changes, larger things can actually happen to help change perceptions. And I think in Nottingham that makes a big difference. I just felt that a very small amount of change would be really dramatic, because actually there are some challenges that I think we really want. We now find, having done some canal projects in different towns, where we have very, very successful, very much more used canals, that the challenges are, hang on a minute, we don't want cyclists on the canal because they impact on the walkers, or we don't want this, or we don't want that, which is caused through the dynamics of this canal becoming super popular to a lot of people, if you like, So in a way, we're going to have a series of challenges as we take this idea forward as the canal changes, because I have no doubt I was there on a very hot sunny day. When I walked back from the Island Basin back up, I decided to not use the canal and walk just back up the road, crossing the main road and walking back up to the railway station that way. It was hot, it was pretty bleak, it was very, very hard. The canal walk as an alternative, there's no question that as we highlight that benefit, that it is going to be something that people are going to feel, they're going to gravitate towards it. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a very exciting opportunity.
Which is exactly what you're wanting, isn't it? We want people to gravitate to it. Now, Phil, we've got a question from Alice Ullathorne for you. How do the waterways fit in with other heritage-led regeneration schemes in the city? Because obviously we've spoken about the kind of developments, regeneration, but the more heritage-led side.
Well, I think it fits in very well, really. I mean, the canal is heritage. Paul Seddon talked about the canal being the city's history, and it is going to be its future as well. So the canal, it provides that link between different heritage initiatives and projects and transformation. The canal is heritage, but it's not stagnant or static as well. Yes, we've got listed structures and bridges that need preserving and maintaining, but you know, we're creating what people in years to come will talk about being the heritage of the canal in Nottingham. So I think it is, you know, we need to be sympathetic to the past. I think the canal just has that linking, that physical link between places in the city, but it also has that kind of historical and that psychological link and bringing everything all together. So I think it fits in very well with the whole heritage agenda.
I'd say so. And yes, like you say, Paul Seddon did say in his interview that it is the kind of heritage of the city. It's true, and it is the future as well. So now we've got time for Linny. Just give us a bit of a reminder for anyone who's watching this who maybe are wanting to get involved, aren't sure how, what to do. How can people get involved in the Canal Improvement Partnership?
Okay, so we'd love to hear from anybody that's got ideas, wants to join the steering group, or just wants to talk to us a bit more about our plans. And the easiest way to get in touch is to email Scott, and I think we've given his contact details. But in the meantime, Scott and myself will be following up and talking to people that have come on this call today. We're also going to provide a recording of this, aren't we, so that people can share it with their colleagues. And yet we're open and ready to start those discussions. We can have virtual meetings, or we can have walk and talks along the canal.
Oh, walk and talk by the canal sounds lovely, doesn't it? There we go. Well, thank you so much, Linny, Phil and Noel, for answering all those questions. If there are any questions that we weren't able to answer at this point in time, we'll make sure that they are passed on to the team at the Canal and River Trust to make sure they are answered for you. But that's all we've got time for today. Massive thank you to everyone who spoke to us at the canal last week on that beautiful sunny day. And thank you, of course, for watching today and asking all of your fantastic questions. But for now, we'll say goodbye. Have a lovely rest of your day and enjoy your weekend. Thank you ever so much.